Welcome to Gone Outdoors. Kyle Agre and Scott Brewer of Brewer Agre Outdoors. Talking hunting, talking fishing, and talking anything you can do outdoors. Right here on Kello News Talk 1320, 107.9 FM, and KWSN 1230 AM, 98.1 FM, both out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and the mighty 790 KFGO Fargo 104.7 FM. Today's Gone Outdoors is brought to you by Ray's Sport and Marine, your local Lund Boats and Bennington pontoon dealer in Moorhead. RaysMarineMoorhead.com. Adventure RV across from the Fairgrounds Inn, West Fargo, your number one RV dealer in the FM area. AdventureRVSales.com. Devil's Lake Tourism. Looking for wide open spaces, amazing fishing, and a refreshing escape? Discover Devil's Lake, where adventure, relaxation, and North Dakota hospitality come together. Plan your stay at devilslakend.com. The Outdoor Adventure Foundation. For over 17 years, the foundation has created life-changing outdoor adventures for youth facing life-threatening illness, injured veterans, and first responders. Learn more at outdooradventurefoundation.org. Strand Ace Hardware, Barnesville and downtown Pelican Rapids, proudly family-owned for 70 years. Valley Truck Gear, protecting your equipment. The Outdoorsman, and Onyx Fish Midwest, cast beyond the familiar. And welcome to the Gone Outdoors studio here as we come at you this week talking everything outdoors. And we're so glad that you are picking a seat right beside us. And whether that's in the boat, whether that's in the truck, whether that's out in the tractor or combine or digger or whatever you're doing, there could be any number of places you're listening in. We're glad to have you. We're glad you're listening, and we're glad you are with us. Scott, again, season's coming to a close here. We're getting closer and closer to that magical flip of the calendar that turns August into September. I think we got one more. Do we have one more show yet before we get to that point?
We do. Yes, we have one here at the end of the month. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more hunting then too. You know, as we continue throughout this early autumn, the hunting seasons are very rapidly approaching.
Some have already started.
Archery season, you know, once you get into archery season, then now we're really talking serious hunting.
Yeah, and in North Dakota, I know that's only 2 weeks away.
It is. Minnesota's about a month away.
Yep.
And, you know, Kyle, maybe that should be something that we could take up, is why is Minnesota the middle of September and not early September? I would really curious as to why that is.
Yeah, and you know what? You can dig down that rabbit hole, but both the Minnesota DNR and the North Dakota Game and Fish have taken a little bit different approaches to how they manage their deer herd.
For sure.
You know, in North Dakota, you are not guaranteed to get a tag. It is not, it's not a given. It's for firearms anyway, that you would be able to harvest a deer each year. They manage within each of the zones, which Minnesota is divided into zones. They manage within each of the zones, but they have always maintained in Minnesota that you are able to purchase a license over the counter, and then they manage from there based on antlerless permits, bonus deer permits, and things like that.
Yeah, it's completely separate. You know, in North Dakota, the buck tag, whether it's a mule deer or a whitetail, is the most coveted tag that you can get. Minnesota, you can just buy them over the counter. The more coveted tags are the doe tags.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It is different philosophies, and some of that probably in that entire overview and formula, somewhere in there, I'm sure start date, finish date, all plays into the picture.
Yeah, certainly it does. Goose seasons are open in some areas, not every area, because it seems like even the different states, they're not the same within that state either, which it's kind of interesting because, you know, it's all managed by the federal system. Why can't all these states get everything the same?
Well, I know the federal The Federal Migratory Waterfowl Act dictates when your regular migratory waterfowl season can happen.
Yep.
But that doesn't include the early season. The early season is a state management season to control numbers of local birds.
Yep.
Same thing with your early teal, things like that, where you have a more of a local management opportunity is determined on the state level.
Yeah, and it's amazing, like you had said, if you want to hunt, you can generally go hunt somewhere. It might not be in your state, depending on how they manage, but you can go hunt. If you're a bow hunter in North Dakota, you can go to Minnesota and you can buy a bull tag. It's going to cost you. They're not cheap, but you can do it.
Think about this. This is the one that I always use as sort of the extreme end of the pendulum, and that's our light goose, our mid-continent light goose population. We have a spring harvest for those birds as they're migrating back up north.
Yep.
But those birds have been hunted since waterfowl season started in the fall.
Yeah.
Right? They've been hunted all the way down south to their wintering grounds down in Texas, Arkansas, and some of those areas. And the seasons, as they've gone through different zones, continue to be open until they make their way all the way back through Minnesota and the Dakotas again in the spring until they hit their nesting grounds.
Yeah. Yeah. They're smart. They are very smart by then. But that's what kind of makes it fun, too.
That's what makes it fun. A lot of guys find success with the younger birds. I think I read sometime that the average age of that mid-continent light goose population, the average age of those birds is right around 14 or 15 years old.
Wow.
Pretty incredible. They've seen a decoy spread or two.
That's very incredible. And it really makes me wonder, too, if that's why a lot of people like to hunt the early seasons for geese or duck or whatever your state has, is because, in Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, by the time that the birds get down to you, they've been shot at a few times. They're getting smart already.
They're wise. There's no doubt about it. You think about these animals and they have a brain the size of, about a pea, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bigger on a goose. I don't know.
Like trying to trap a raccoon.
It's absolutely
you catch
like
him once
that.
And he's smart.
They have instincts beyond our imagination.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Scott, we've got some great guests lined up for today. It's going to be another fantastic show, and something that I always look forward to is visiting with these folks. Randy Topper. He is the latest in the National Walleye Trail tournament winners. And Randy's a fellow Lundboat pro, a fellow Ray's Sport and Marine pro, and I can't wait to hear his story. This wasn't a one-shot deal. This guy is a talented angler.
He has had a heck of a year, and in some cases, a heck of 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, he's an incredibly talented angler. Love to hear what he's going to have to share. Alex Russo, Flatland Flyways. Speaking of waterfowl, this guy is a South Dakota waterfowler, a guide, and we're going to get a preview of the season and find out what they're preparing for as we get into that time of the year, as we were just saying. And then our good buddy, Randin Olson, Lockjaw Guide Service, is going to talk about something he's been doing a lot of lately, and that is targeting sturgeon in the Ottertail River system. We'll find out what that's all about and a whole lot more coming up on Gone Outdoors. Onyx Fish Midwest, covering 11 states on both iOS and Android. All your fishing information is one click away. Searching for new destinations by species, abundance, or trophy potential, it's all at your fingertips, including access points and shoreline ownership.
You get confused by special lake regulations? They're all on Onyx Fish Midwest. Real-time weather for your exact location, aerial imagery, and waypoint management, all right to your mobile device. Use code BA Outdoors to get 20% off your subscription at onyxmaps.com. Hey everybody, welcome back to Gone Outdoor Radio. You're listening on Kello News Talk, or KWSN in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, or the mighty 790 in Fargo Moorhead. Scotty Brewer, Kyle Agre, Brewer Agre Outdoors. And we are going to chat with a very, very, very good angler right now. We got Randy Topper. He's from Grand Rapids, Minnesota. He's a guide. He's a tournament angler, and he has had an amazing year so far. Welcome to Gone Outdoors, Randy.
Yeah, thank you guys. Good to be on.
So, if my recollection is right, you got your fourth win at the Graha, which is probably one of the most prestigious Minnesota tournaments. That and Lunmania, between those two. And you got your third consecutive win at Lunmania this year. Pretty darn
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, it's been absolutely amazing. Yeah, it was just the first time at Graha was like seemed like a once in a lifetime thing. I did grow up on the lake, so it's always been near and dear to my heart. Graha always has been, but it's been very good to us over the years. I feel very fortunate, and pulling it off again this year seemed almost impossible. And all of a sudden, the chips started to fall, and at the end of the day, it was crazy, surprised and excited and grateful, all wrapped up into one. Still hard to believe. Everything's been kind of happening fast this summer.
Yeah. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but is this your first year in the NWT?
Yes, I fished one other single event last year. I had planned and hoped I was going to fish the whole season last year. Things just didn't work out with work and things like that. So after the first one, I had to step back and then in hopes of trying again this year.
Well, we're glad that you did because you are having a very good year. And the most recent event here at the beginning of the month, Green Bay, and you were the winner of the National Walleye Tour event on Green Bay. That's against the best walleye anglers in the country, hands down. And that has got to be super, super cool.
Yeah, again with that one, it's just like I said, everything's happening so fast. It's been a crazy month. It's still hard to believe. My year didn't start out great. Erie really kicked my butt, and I didn't know for sure if I was gonna make the whole season. I think I was sitting in 82nd on Erie. Just made a couple of behind the eight ball decisions, and then started climbing from there. I went into Green Bay. Climbed all the way up to 42nd. So I was right on kind of the verge of making it to the championship or not. And then Green Bay, of course, sent me over the edge where I'm heading there next, actually leaving tomorrow sometime.
Randy, you're a pretty humble guy given your success. I appreciate that. And certainly no, we're not asking you to give out all of the secret sauce here, but you've got the tournament algorithm figured out. And share with our listeners maybe just a little bit of perhaps your philosophy that you take into a tournament and into an event as you pre-fish and you go into tournament day.
Oh, big help is I travel with a team of guys that are all like-minded, all very just workhorses and very smart in the fishing world. Find a group of guys that you get along with and have a great time with, and that makes breaking down water and everything so much more enjoyable. Probably, and once I get into things, as far as, and all of us, is we always preach about details. I mean, it's easy to kind of go get hung up on things and fish the way you've always fished. But what we pick up on, because everybody is so good right now, I feel like the field of anglers is probably the best it's ever been in history. And it's just the tiny, tiny little details, whether it's line size or jig color or size of jig, slowing presentations down, speeding them up, and not only day to day, but hour by hour, and all that stuff's learned in practice. So the more you can be on the water, and again, having an extra eyes on it where we're sharing information at night over dinner and stuff, it just helps a tremendous amount. But the biggest thing for me is staying relevant with advancements in technology and making sure that you're on top of all those things, because everybody else is, and details is pretty much my biggest thing. I mean, I don't, in my normal life, I'm not hyper focused on details. You could say I'm relaxed a lot more in the other way, but in fishing, I see and take and try to retain every single, there's always a reason, we might catch one fish, but two is definitely a pattern, and try to realize every single thing and the reason why that fish bit.
So, Randy, you had mentioned a group that you travel with and having guys that you trust and guys that you get along with. I mean, that's really got to say a lot, too, for the partners that you work with, because you've been with Lund and you've been with Ray's Marine for a very long time.
Yep, I've ran a Lund my entire career. That it's just it's not really possible for me. I mean, the relationships I've built with them and just the service that I get. It's right here in my hometown, Ray Sport Marine, Grand Rapids. So I'm like 8 miles away, so I can always pop in there. If anything happens, the guys there get me taken care of quick, and I'm just a Lund guy. I'm hoping that's the way it always is. And I like I said, that's where I'm at home, and I've always dealt with them. So I'm just comfortable there.
Yeah, and it's good to have that relationship, like you said, whether it's your fishing partners or your business partners. Having good relationships is huge, and it just doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long time to be able to build that.
100%. Everybody's crunched for time nowadays. Time is so valuable, and having good relationships where all those things kind of come together is so key. I feel like I don't have a hour to spare, let alone a few days to try to figure out something to do with the boat, and they've just always been great to me. So yeah, I can't say enough about Rays. They've been super great to me.
Good people over there, no doubt about it. We've got them here in our town too, and boy, oh boy, do we feel it just like you do, Randy. Hey, as we wrap up this segment, you're headed off the championship. You mentioned that. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts going in, and whether you've got any other plans for the rest of the season going into fall.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. Like I said, it's been that champion, or that win at Green Bay has been a lot of chatter. It's been super fun to see kind of my face and mug all over the place, and it's really exciting. I'm really trying to honestly do my best, probably after today forward, to just kind of block all that stuff out and not go into this tournament knowing I've had the most incredible run the past month and a half here, and just go into it as hungry as I was in the very first one, and not even think about the past couple wins here, and just go in and keep my mind clear. It's a total new lake. I've fished Sac before, but this is new water, so just a fresh mindset, and then grinding as hard as I can and spending every minute on the water. And once that's done, that might be a wrap for me for tournaments, and then I'm going to start really thinking whitetails. So that's kind of where my fall goes to, and I get totally fixed and zoned in on that, and I'll start bow hunting as soon as I can.
That's a good place to be as well. Just pay attention to the details, see what Scott Goia tells you, and listen to what she's telling you, and good luck. I know Kyle and I are rooting for you, as are all of your Minnesota friends. Thanks for coming on Gone Outdoors, Randy. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate you guys.
All right, stick around. We'll be back with the second half of today's Gone Outdoors after this short break. This is Scotty and Kyle. If you're in the market for a new fishing boat, you've got to check out Ray Sport Marine in Moorhead. They've got a huge lineup of Lund boats, all powered by Mercury outboards.
From chasing walleyes to pulling the kids on tubes and skis, there's a Lund built for every kind of adventure, with a Mercury on the back to power through it all.
Visit Ray Sport Marine in Moorhead, just north of Menards, or explore their full Lund and Mercury lineup anytime at raysportmarine.com.
Welcome back to the second half of this morning's Gone Outdoors. Kyle Agre and Scott Brewer of Brewer Agre Outdoors, talking hunting, talking fishing, and talking anything you can do outdoors here on Kello News Talk and KWSN. in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and the mighty 790 KFGO Fargo. We're excited to be able to welcome a new guest to our show. We have with us Alex Russo, Flatland Flyways. He is a full-service outfitter, primarily waterfowl hunts in South Dakota. Alex, welcome to Gone Outdoors.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Hey, the timing is everything in the outdoors is about timing, right? And it's about being prepared. It's about being ready for when the season starts. And down there in South Dakota, you are we're knocking on the door here of the early Canada goose season. That's going to be followed not too long after by youth and our regular waterfowl season. Tell us a little bit about your story and how you came into the business of helping people find success in the outdoors.
Yeah, so basically, I grew up in Aberdeen, South Dakota. My great grandfather had a piece of land up by Sand Lake National Walleye Refuge. So my dad had brought me and my brothers up here, as kids, just pheasant hunting, waterfowl hunting, shooting trap, just being outside. I fell in love with it at a young age. It was a burning passion of mine all through high school. Everything, any jobs I had, I basically tried to save money to buy equipment and just, make our arsenal of hunting gear better as we got older. I was in the military for roughly 6 years, medically discharged out of the military, and I really didn't know after, deployments what I wanted to do. That was kind of what I wanted to do my 20 years, and I couldn't. So I did construction for a little bit and did more thinking, and my big thing was, the big part of why I joined the service is I wanted to help people who couldn't help themselves. And so with the addiction and passion of waterfowl hunting that I had, I really wanted to take people out from around the country on really high quality hunts, ethical hunts, and morally sound hunts that, sometimes people don't always get that when they book with an outfitter. And so that's kind of where it came from, and it turned into a family operation. My mom she's the head chef up at the lodge. My dad's the host and full-time dishwasher, and my wife runs all the business and logistical sides for our hunters coming in, and I run basically the hunting side of it. So
Hey, Alec, you briefly mentioned your service to our country, and thank you very much for that, by the way.
yeah, thank you.
And when we chatted earlier, you talked about many of the veteran military things that you guys have going on there. And we don't necessarily need to talk about that now because we got so much other stuff to do. We'll do that on a different segment because that's really, really good stuff. So
Absolutely.
you are based right next to the Sand Lake Wildlife Refuge. And this is the same property that you grew up on, correct?
That is correct, sir. Yes.
So I think it's super cool when you had said that you started that passion when you were young because somebody took you out. You were fortunate enough to have somebody take you out. That's not necessarily the case for so many youth. And I think that's something that you're working on too. I think you give out free trips or youth are free when they come in up to a certain age, correct?
Yeah, if you're 16 and under and accompanied by an adult, it doesn't have to be your parent. It could be your uncle. It could be another dad that's bringing you on a trip. You're 100% free, lodging, food, hunt, everything.
Thank you. That is absolutely amazing. And, that's Scott and I both have a lot of our service to youth is in the fishing side of it. But I so appreciate that you're doing that for kids, for hunting, because that's just as big a part of the outdoors. So thank you for that. You're looking ahead at the season, right? We're knocking on the door. It's here. And I know one of the big questions that I'm hearing around our neck of the woods is how the the hunt and the season's going to play out based on how dry it's been up here in North Dakota. How have conditions been in your area?
We did get kind of dry in July. Our immediate region where I live, by the refuge and then to the east to the Minnesota border seems like I'll say a swampy area. So a lot of the potholes still are holding, substantial water. I know the hatch was phenomenal just based from what I see. I'm not a biologist, but I do have eyes and a brain, and I could see the broods, whether it was Canada geese, whether it was teal, widgeon, pintails, mallards. Our pheasant hatch was phenomenal. I haven't seen this many young pheasants since I was probably in high school. We had a couple really mild winters back to back, which also helps our populations. And then the nesting conditions for this year, I personally feel were about as perfect as you could ask for. So I think it's going to be a really, really fun, duck opener for the state of South Dakota. I think October is going to sustain a really promising variety of ducks. You're going to have your teal, your widgeon, your pintails, all that. And there was a pretty impressive amount of mallards that hatched here.
That really bodes well for the season, which is great to hear. And, a lot of the cards are yet to be played when it comes to how fall weather comes out and how that affects the birds. But any advice for folks as they're looking ahead now with the next couple of weeks getting ready for early Canada goose and maybe some things that they should be preparing for in that time before the season opens?
I'd say one thing's bug spray. Outside of that, I mean, make sure you're scouting and looking for those small grains that are harvested. Obviously, most guys know that. Make sure you're communicating with the landowners and, sometimes, picking their brains too. They know some hidden gems they've seen all summer. But I would say, the more miles you can put on and the more eyes you can put, in an area, the better, and communicate with your friends and landowners and make sure that you're putting the time in. You're probably not just going to stumble upon something great unless you put the work into it. So
really good advice when it comes to doing that work before the season opener hits. A lot of our success is based on that, the time we spend between the close of last season and the start of the new one ahead of us. So for our listeners, Alex, if they have questions, if they want to reach out, if they want to book a trip, how do they find you? How do they get a hold of you? And how do they schedule that time with you?
Yeah, so obviously we have a website. It'd be www.flatlandflyways.com. We have Facebook, Instagram. My wife, you can contact. She does the booking and all the logistical side. Like I said, her number is online. My number's online. One of the big things I like to tell people, don't be afraid either, to direct message or Facebook on questions with hunting or gear or different just tips and stuff. We're not an outfitter that is against, helping the public. We like to help the public. We encourage not only kids, but even adults that are getting into the sport to get out there. And so if we can help people get motivated and educated on certain things to the best of our ability, we would love to help. So don't be afraid to reach out.
I love it, Alex. Appreciate that. We're talking to Alex Russo, Flatland Flyways Outfitters. We so appreciate you taking a little bit of time with us. And I know I can speak for Scott saying we're excited and look forward to hearing more about some of the things you're doing to help veterans and others as we go down the line. So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Folks, don't go away. We are not done yet. We have a whole lot more Gone Outdoors ahead of us. We'll take a quick break and be back with a whole lot more outdoor talk.
At Acme Tackle, innovation meets results, from legendary cast masters to proven trolling and jigging baits that flat out catch fish.
When it's time to finesse, power, or fill the live well, reach for Kalen's Plastics. Lifelike action, proven colors, and the soft plastics that fish just don't let go of.
and tie it all together with Elliott fishing rods, lightweight, sensitive, and built for anglers who demand performance on every cast.
Acme Tackle, Kalen's Plastics, and Elliott Fishing Rods. Fish smarter, fish harder, fish confident.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Gone Outdoor Radio. You're listening on Kello News Talk or KWSN in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, or KFGO, the mighty 790 in Fargo, Moorhead, and surrounding area. Scotty Brewer, Kyle Agre, Brewer Agre Outdoors. And on this segment, we're going to chat with somebody else from Brewer Agre Outdoors, Mr. Randin Olson. He is the owner of Lockjaw Guide Service, and he is one of the best anglers that either Kyle or I know. How you doing, Randin?
Well, I'm doing pretty good today, guys. I appreciate you guys having me on.
So we wanted to talk to you about something that it's a species that not a lot of people target. It is becoming more popular a little bit each year, but it's not really that popular where you're targeting them. And that is lake sturgeon in lakes. So let's talk about that a little bit. When did you start doing this?
Well, to be completely honest, it's been a couple of years in the making. A couple of years ago, the sturgeon restocking on Ottertail Lake, the Ottertail River system is a huge success story. If you ever get a few minutes, take a look into it. They were kind of put back in 2000, and the population has just exploded. And a couple of years ago, we were looking at these fish, and we'd get them by accident, walleye fishing here or there, but there's all these big fish swimming around, and nobody's touching them. So it took a little while to kind of get the courage, I guess, to really try to figure them out a little bit. But a couple of years later, and we by no means have it figured out, but we're consistently catching fish now, and it's been a really pretty cool process.
We should just clarify too, Randin, that by Minnesota DNR, there is the opportunity during the sturgeon season to target them, but you can't keep them, right? Or maybe there is an opportunity to buy a tag, but that's additional, but the primary season is catch and release only?
Yes, it's catch and release only. They are protected while they're during their spawning seasons. So our season is closed from like April 15th till about June 15th, and the days could be a little back or forth either there. But while the spawning season's happening, it's closed. Can't fish for them, can't target them, nothing. The rest of the year, fair game. There is no tags around here. As far as I know, you cannot keep one, but they are catch and release only. Season's open, and they're just sitting out there waiting for us.
Randin, if I remember right, back in the late 90s when those were put in, they were put in for the purpose of restocking the Red River. Why won't they put them in the Red? Well, they wanted to restock the entire Red River basin. And when they did that, there's a bunch of lakes that now have these big sturgeon in them. And
Yep.
When I say big, how big are you catching?
We're consistently catching fish that are mid 50s to low 60s.
Wow.
More often than not, the fish we're catching are 54, 56, 57, 62. We do see some 35s and stuff, some 40s, but that mid 50-inch range is really prominent right now.
And now with this large population of fish in these lakes, where most people that target sturgeon are used to doing it in a river, and there isn't a whole lot of information out there if you want to target them in lakes, which is why we got you on, because like when we chatted the other day, you're kind of writing a book on it.
Yeah, it's been quite the process. If anybody knows of any information out there, I'd love to read it. I've kind of scoured the internet and YouTube and anything else I can think of. And there's barely any info on just catching them in a river. This, like you said earlier, it's maybe not the most chased species yet, but I guarantee that it's going to be here soon once this kind of gets out. It's so much fun. Figuring them out in these lakes, it's just been it's such a whirlwind of thoughts and trying to figure these fish out. It's pretty fun.
So what have you figured out? Let's start out with some seasonal patterns.
Yes. So far, from the time we can start to target them around that mid-June, we're noticing those fish are already kind of pushing out from the river mouths areas where they're going in to do their spawn or mock spawn. And it's a lot like every other fish, a kind of slow migration all the way out into the middle of the lake. There's always seems to be some fish around the rivers, but interestingly enough, as this summer's kind of gotten deeper, there's less and less fish up by those river mouths and around those river channels. So that's kind of pretty interesting to see that. As far as kind of locations that we're finding them now, it's a lot of these real steep breaks. It's a hard bottom has definitely been a key for these guys. But there's a steep break kind of in cuts up to a shelf or a feeding flat or something like that. And I've been kind of calling it a river of sturgeon. You'll run into a pod, and there might be 30 of them, and there might be 10 of them, but they'll all kind of be together.
Do we know, Randin, what the natural food, preference is for these lake sturgeon? Like, what are they down there eating?
I think a lot of this in our lakes is insects and larvae and things like that. I'm sure they're eating some dead fish that are floating down there. I'm sure they're, eating some crayfish for sure. And supposedly they eat zebra mussels. I haven't confirmed that yet, but that sounds like that's a pretty real thing going forward here. So that's kind of a bonus to having these fish in our system.
Boy, if they're just eating the insects and larvae, just imagine how much they have to eat every day.
Very interesting fact that I just found out is these are the only fish that have taste buds. And that explains a lot of what I've seen trying to catch these fish. And it's almost like trying to get my 5-year-old daughter to eat her dinner every night sometimes. So it's interesting.
So how are you catching this fish? How are you targeting them?
We're using, kind of the same thing everybody does up north. Nothing special rigging wise. Big heavy rods, kind of catfish rigs. I've been playing around with some lengths on them, and there's definitely a difference between longer and shorter as far as what you get for bites and things like that. But bait wise, night crawlers are still the best. But when you're putting 10 on at a time and you're in a lake like Otter Tail where there's 50 billion perch, you start to look for something other than night crawlers after a little bit. So we have been catching some on plastics, scented plastics, some of the Z-Man stuff. We've been catching fish right out of the package, putting that stuff on. But we've been playing around. Cut bait is definitely not very good. We have tried a lot of cut bait and no fish on it yet. So this process of going through baits is a pretty interesting time.
So now that you've got this newfound interest in sturgeon, are you thinking of targeting them this winter as well?
That is definitely on the agenda. We did try a couple times last winter, but that was kind of before this summer happened, and we kind of got that pattern here started to roll. So feeling like we're at least behind the fish now. We're definitely not out in front of them or haven't figured them out, but this winter is going to be a really big test for that, and we're hoping to dial it in and get them coming up through an ice hole.
That's awesome. You keep doing what you do, Randin, and keep filling in the rest of us as to how to do it. If anybody would like to get a hold of you and hire you for a muskie trip, a walleye trip, or a sturgeon trip, how can they get a hold of you?
Absolute best way is just to give us a call at 218-640-0158. Otherwise, you can always go on our website and book it and do all that right through there at www.lockjawguideservice.com.
Perfect. Thank you, Randin, for coming on Gone Outdoors.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Special thanks to our show sponsors, Ray Sport Marine, Adventure RV, Devil's Lake Tourism, Valley Truck Gear, Strand Ace Hardware, the Outdoor Adventure Foundation, the Outdoorsman, and Onyx Fish Midwest. Thank you for tuning in to today's Gone Outdoors. Follow along when you're on the water or in the field with Gone Outdoor Podcasts at kfgo.com, kwsn.com, kelo.com, Apple Podcasts, or on Spotify. Visit us at breweryagreoutdoors.com for all kinds of great information and follow us on social media. Until next week, from Scotty and Kyle, we'll be Gone Outdoors.